right, welcome to Dropping In at Pipeline Audio number 103, and this is Rupert Neve. So let's see, what do we got here? First of all, looks like Soundmagic AB is no longer available. I don't know if you ever used this thing. It was you put it in your master bus so you could reference mixes. You could control the volume for each one. You could set up looping sections. And, I went to go look at it today, and nothing really showed up for it. At Plugin Boutique, they just had some articles about it, and it was no longer for sale there. I couldn't find it for sale anywhere, and I think maybe Dave found something that said that it's no longer available. There's another one called Reference 2, and that is it says masteringthemix.com. I heard about this on some podcast. I think it's the podcast of the guys who make this. I think the guy's name is Ian, and he was the one who talks a lot about LUFS and loudness and all that stuff. They have like a mastering show. I think that's the guy. They had like a mastering podcast. And it looks like it does pretty much the same stuff and more. It's called Reference 2, $70. Let's see. You'll see the exact EQ and compression changes needed to get your music sounding like your reference track. That sounds interesting. I don't know how you do that, but the EQ maybe, but the compression, that's interesting. 15-day trial, no credit card required. You load your references. Then they have some kind of level match thing. And then the visuals show you how to adjust your EQ, balance, stereo width, and compression to sound more like your reference track. That's really interesting. So I guess since you can't get Magic AB as far as I know anymore, I think this is around the same price. So go check it out. I swear, what was the name of the mastering show? Sorry, I'm trying to find the name of the show. Anyway, so go check out that Reference 2 if you're missing Soundmagic AB, I guess. Let's see, what else do we have? I've been doing a video series on our YouTube and Facebook and everything else, calling Clickbait Video Review. And this is basically people have been sending me videos to talk about how I feel about, I guess, kind of like reaction videos. But, it's mostly these clickbait guys. It's titles like 3 secrets to mixing that the pros are trying to hide from you. And then if you look in their description, they're trying to upsell you some nonsense course, or you get write to them, give them your email address for a free ebook they make, and it's just garbage in there. It's just basically multi-level marketing looking stuff. And, most of the time you can tell because it's one of those videos where there's some thumbnail that they're spamming all over the place. The guy looking surprised or whatever, like surprised face. You're like, oh man, this stuff is lame. And so, I've just been basically doing reaction videos to it. Haven't been blocked yet, but I'm sure that's coming. And whoever does block me, this is fair use by any definition of it. So you suck. The neat thing is in the process, I've been finding that some of the guys that I really thought were clickbait lamos aren't quite as bad as I thought. And then other channels were pretty cool. So I actually find some cool channels about this. I did watch the one about scalloping guitars, and these guys, these are like pro luthiers that have like bajillions of subscribers and views on YouTube, and these guys were absolutely clueless when it came to scallop guitars. It was crazy. So man, this has been a fun project. I'm gonna try and keep doing this, at least one video a day. That's actually, I'm sorry they're live, so You know, they're gonna have pauses in them. They're gonna have people calling because, you know, I run a music school. I do some other stuff, and people call and people drop by all the time. You know, even though you shouldn't be because it's, you know, coronavirus time. So stay away. But yeah, that's how these are. You know, nothing really seems to get me like bald assertions. You know, we were watching you know, over at TGP, and this is just typical. People will just make claims that they have no idea what they're talking about. They don't give you numbers. They don't give you a quantified quantities of what the difference is. They'll just say something's better than something else. You know, and this one of these ones I'm looking at right now, they're talking about upgrading from a Focusrite 2i2 to an Audient ID 14 Mark II. And let's look at what this Audient ID 14 Mark II really is. Okay, so first of all, you're not upgrading the drivers. As far as I know, these are still Thesicon drivers. You might, I don't think, but the 2i2, I don't think you're going to get loop back. That's the only place I would really see anything major. I'm going to go to Sweetwater real quick and see what's different on this thing. So an ID14. Okay, it's got an optical input. So right off the bat, there's a gigantic upgrade in that you can add 8 more channels to this thing. So I'd say that's an upgrade right off the bat. Otherwise, you know, people keep making all these claims about how much better the audience sound. Does it only have one guitar input on this thing? Yeah, it looks like it. I can't tell for sure. Maybe there's an instrument. Yeah, man, it really looks like it only has one guitar input. Maybe might be a downgrade for some people, but people always make these claims that they sound so much better, and they never tell you why. So somebody said, the newer ID14 Mark II has a dynamic range of 120 for ADC and 125.5 for the DAC. The Scarlett Mark III is around 111 for the ADC and 108 for the DAC. That's a pretty nice upgrade, and I bet you'll notice it more on the DAC when mixing. Years ago, I tried to compare my Profire 26 to my RME ADI2 converters. Running a Portico pre into line inputs of each device, I could not hear much of a difference in the ADC. However, I heard a pretty nice difference in the DAC when monitoring. It's not going to be your dynamic range. Are you kidding me? Are you going to have a room? Are you going to have a room that goes down into 108 decibels? Really? That is a hell of a control room. And I don't think you'd be running a Focusrite Scarlett in a control room like that. I mean, that's not going to be where the difference is. But even if it weren't, you guys that always say something sounds so much better, they measure pretty flat, you know, really low noise, really low distortion. So what's going to be better? You want something that's not flat? I mean, there are times when you want something that's not flat, but I mean, what are you guys saying when you guys always talk about how much better these things are or that things are? So, yeah, you know, it's always bald assertions. They always talk about how much better this gear is than that gear, and they never tell you why. I don't believe them. Okay. On Quora stuff, notice I haven't been answering much Quora questions lately, and I'm really not going to. Quora makes it really hard to sort by date, and unless you guys know a way to do it, I'm done. I'm just, they keep sending me 10-year-old crap in my answer this, even if it has my name on it. So, yeah, I'm done. Okay. Again, this isn't the Reaper users group on Facebook, but the Reaper DAW users Facebook group. Some guys went into full chode mode because, again, somebody asked, and I'll quote, "Just curious, do you know any radio hits recorded and or mixed in Reaper?" And you know how they answered that. All kinds of snark and Dunning-Kruger, straw men, psychic mind reading, and, of course, some real lame-o had to do the let me Google that for you. And then when he, you know, I called him out on him. I said, where's your Google results? Let's see it. And there were none. there was a post to an old Reaper forum post where somebody had asked the same thing, and honestly, Kenny was being a real douche. Really, I was surprised. Kenny, for all his virtue signaling and stuff. Man, it did not look didn't age well. So you guys are lame. The guy answered a question. What's wrong with answering the question? If you don't know, say you don't know. And all you let me Google that for you guys. You guys really suck. So whatever. And again, that's why I made that new Facebook group where I'm fighting for the soul of Reaper, and I'm calling it Evidence-Based Audio Engineering and Reaper Refuge, because we may need a refuge for Reaper users. So, okay. And then, man, there was a lot of neural hype this week. You had Glenn's videos where he had the quad cortex. But what interests me a lot is what people say about the VSTs, the amp sims. What's so much better about you guys saying that these amps sound just so amazing? But I remember the one I tried, I didn't like much. The Dark Glass one I did, but I didn't hear anything that was like magic that you couldn't do with another one. I still, yeah, it didn't have very much features, but it had a decent amp, and it didn't need as much CPU as everybody seemed to be saying, but I just wasn't that impressed. I guess I'll try some of the other demos. I don't hear it. But every week somebody's saying there's some kind of magical, this one sounds so much better than the rest of them. I'm still happy with Bias. I guess I suck. The other thing is, where is the native version of that quad cortex? It's not like, Helix did it. Line 6 did it with their Helix. And, I don't know what all is in the quad cortex, but the Helix is a full-featured, not just an amp sim, but a multi-effect system. They have a real harmonizer in there. They have some pretty serious routing and horsepower in that thing. So I don't see a reason why Neural can't do that same thing. And, it's not quite fair to call that quad cortex a dongle, any more than it would be to call the Helix a dongle. But, I'd like to see that stuff native. Let's see it. I think one of the issues might be that they price their stuff pretty high, and just one amp is like a pile of money from them. So I think by the time you got to something like the Helix, you'd be buying, it'd be like thousands for the amps or something. So maybe that's it. But I'd like to see it. Line 6 did it. You guys can do it. I don't believe that it's that much more DSP than what Line 6 is. I don't believe for a second. Remember when we had all those turds that were telling us you'd never be able to run a native reverb? Like there wasn't enough CPU. There was plenty of CPU. You guys are just full of crap, basically. Okay. All right, so here's the main event. This is going to be a short one, man, but it's kind of crazy. Let me read you this whole thing. So I'm reading this off of rupertneve.com. Yeah, here we go. Wimberley, Texas, February 13th, 2021. That's today still. And it is with great sadness that we announce that Rupert Neve, whose name is synonymous with quality audio recording equipment worldwide, has died. He remained in great spirits to the end, enjoying his life in Wimberley, Texas, where he and his wife Evelyn have lived for 27 years. At 97, Rupert remained engaged and passionate about his work, spending most days on a perpetual series of audio electronics projects and continuing to mentor our engineering team on numerous design and development projects. Yeah, Rupert Neve died today. From his earliest memories, Rupert had a love for music, electronics, and problem solving. These passions sparked a brilliant design career spanning over 80 years, during which he founded several historic companies, created the most revered analog audio equipment of all time, and became the most trusted name in sound. He received countless accolades, including a Lifetime Achievement Technical Grammy Award in 1997, Studio Sound Magazine's Audio Person of the Century Award in 1999, an Audio Engineering Society Fellowship Award in 2006, and 16 Tech Awards. That's Technical Excellence and Creativity Awards with Rupert Neve Designs. I've known and worked with Rupert for nearly 30 years, said Josh Thomas, Rupert Neve Designs co-founder and general manager. When Rupert, his wife Evelyn, and I sat at his kitchen table and founded Rupert Neve Designs 16 years ago, we had two goals. The first was to set a new standard in the quality of recorded sound, drawing upon his unparalleled depth of experience to create high-end solutions for the modern recording engineer, musician, and listener alike. The second was to pass on his philosophies, techniques, and methodologies to a new generation of designers to carry his life's work and passion into the future. It was always assumed that the company would outlive him on this earth, and for 16 years he poured his energies into creating a team that would become the caretakers of the theories, practices, and ideologies that truly constitute a Rupert Neve design. All of us at the company are exceedingly grateful for the years of careful instruction and mentoring with which he has blessed us, and we will continue to preserve his legacy in everything we do moving forward. The world certainly sounds better because he was here. While Rupert's passions for music, creativity, and insistence on exceptional quality have made an indelible mark on the fabric of the recording industry, his kindness, generosity have made him a legend to us all. Through his designs and through the music created with them, his spirit will live on eternally. God bless you, Rupert. Arrangements for a celebration of his life for family and friends will be made when it's safe to do so. And there's a full obituary, media brief, and photographs available at rupertneve.com in the obituary section. And when I first started in this business, I'd seen the name Neve all over the place, and as soon as I was in a pro studio, I was knee deep in rebuilding old Neves and modifying Neve stuff, and there's always some new company that Neve had started. Like he had started one company, sold it to somebody, started another one, sold it to somebody else. We had the Focusrite stuff. So much. This guy was kind of the. He'd always build something and then just move on. I wonder if he wasn't. I wonder if he's like me. He's not good at business, but he had good ideas. This was super high quality stuff back in the day, and I, this was a large part of my learning was as electronics got better, and especially as digital got better. I still for a long time believed that these some kinds of mic preamps, you could never duplicate them again. Like you'd never get such a good sound or whatever. And the few times I'd really read things early on about Rupert Neve, he wasn't talking about some magical thing that was happening. He was talking about making very accurate mic preamps. And, I think he really was of that philosophy of a straight wire with gain. He wasn't out to change the sound of things. And I think if you would have asked him, and I know some designers that I did talk to back in the day, when you asked them about stuff, they really said, actually they'd be insulted if you said that their equipment changed your sound somehow. I think they really were out after accuracy and stuff. Nowadays, there's this whole legend about you run a mic through a Neve and it makes a magical sound that adds something that wasn't there. And it could. You could add some distortion or whatever if you wanted. You're definitely going to add some noise. But, I got tons of respect for Rupert Neve. We all know that. Remember when I used to carry around that blue book and I could mod anybody's older Neve anyway, any of the Class A stuff. But I got to tell you, and it was later on. In the late days, I think Neve started talking about how these mic preamps were more musical or whatever. But I swear in the early days, he was talking straight wire with gain. And I think Massenburg still does. And I think that's the truth. I don't know, you guys, maybe no, you're not going to believe another word I say, but I tell you that you take one of these cheap Focusrite Scarletts or something and measure it, and it's going to be within a decibel or two of the frequency response of one of these Neve mic preamps, at least in the pass band of an analog to digital converter that you're going to use in normal, real day-to-day life. As cool as Rupert Neve was, and as amazing as some of the designs he are, and God, it can't be an enviable position to be in competition with your older self. To know that there's all these consoles out there that people have said these weird things that they had some kind of magic that existed back then that can never be duplicated. So you can't even, the guy who made the things in the first place can't even make a device that people will believe will do as good as something you did years ago, decades ago. But, to me, anything that can be heard can be measured. And if you put an oscilloscope on an old Neve mic preamp and pass a sweep through it and see what you get compared to what you put in, there's no reason you can't do that with something else. Chances are there's no reason you can't do that with an EQ. There are things, there's phase responses, there's the transformers. Half the time I don't believe you guys hear the transformers the way you say you do. I don't believe you. I don't believe you because I've tested you on ABX tests, and you can't tell when there's been a transformer and then when there hasn't. But, you can measure a difference, and but there's no reason that you can't model that somehow as well. Neve set a standard that, gear should, hopefully last a while, but let's not get carried away. How many Neve consoles have you seen where you actually had a shoe on a chain on the side of it because that thing was gonna croak on you at the least opportune time and you'd have to give it a whack? Not all of these were Rupert Neve, were actually Rupert Neve. Some of these were just a company called Neve that maybe he had started a long time ago and he sold to somebody else. But anybody remember the ribbon cable nightmares? All those ribbon cable Neves, you were constantly the most unreliable things. They came with horrible switches that just couldn't hold up. You were changing them out faster than you could even order them. I mean, it was just crazy. Like, this is the most unreliable stuff there was. Then again, how long were we running around with mic preamps based on the 1272s? Brent Averill had those, would sell them, rack them up, and they worked fine. I don't know that they did anything magical, and it's just hard because when I was learning, I was taught by the people I'm supposed to look up to, and now I really look at it more that this was religion rather than reality. That you had to have a Neve, it had to be made in a certain year. You could have an API that was okay for some things. You could have this or you could have that. And the truth is, I've had all this stuff, and I will measure it and operate it in its linear range. Most of this stuff acts the same. I mean, it really does. And the mic preamps you get now for around $50 a channel that come inside an interface, they're so good. It's almost mind-blowing. And I dare say that some of these, depending on how exactly you're checking the specs, are better than these ancient things. But there was so much more that Rupert Neve did, and if you get a chance, I'm sure you could Google this now. There's a time when he gave a speech in Texas, and I think he was very wrong about digital audio, but the way he would explain how you want to think about equipment and how you want to think about solving problems, it was just amazing. And it always kept me going. I don't know if I ever talked to Rupert Neve myself. I may have, but he was definitely a hero. You know, I would say Rupert Neve, George Massenburg, you know, Tom Schultz. You know, that's definitely another one of those guys. But man, what a loss. You know, this has been a crazy couple years, man. And this is, man, what are you going to do now? You know, it looks like he's got, I think the other obituary thing said he has 5. Let me see. He has, okay, yeah. Rupert is survived by his wife of nearly 70 years, Evelyn, 5 children, Mary, David, John, Stephen, and Anne, 9 grandchildren, and 5 great-grandchildren. So hopefully in that whole chunk of Neves over there, there's going to be at least one that's going to keep going. You know, I don't know if you guys have seen, there's a lot of newer products, the Portico stuff, and I think he's gotten involved with Yamaha to make some Steinberg interfaces, I think. Let me see what's in the products here. So there's a Rupert Neve DI, Portico compressor or something, Portico mic preamps. I don't know what all this stuff is. Let's see. Let's see, a dual mic pre, DI and compressor, 4-channel mic pre, primary source enhancer. I'm not sure what that means. But you know, I guess you could get a 4-channel Neve thing. There is an 8-channel box that says Neve, but I don't think it's Neve, his company. It's the Neve that he had before and sold to AMS or whatever, that has an 8-at output for like $8,000 or something. I don't know what any of these things cost, but the 4-channel looks like, you know, it could be like one of your 1272 style things. It's got 2 DIs on it at least. Looks pretty handy, I guess. You know what? Watch the Neve stock go up. So I guess if you own a reel like Melbourne or Kelso or something, you know, this is probably a good time to be looking at selling it. You might get a chunk out of it. But yeah, hopefully you can hear that speech he gave at the Texas shop. It was really funny about how many of his products are still in use from back in the way old days. And, you know, as much as I made fun of the ribbon cable consoles, I still think the 8108 was probably my favorite console we ever had. I don't know why. I think I always ended up overloading the buses or the mic pre's. And so I always had this like crazy distorted cymbals. We had a bunch of Sony C500s that I'd use for overheads and cymbals and stuff. And I always had these really crunchy metal drum mixes out of that thing. But man, what a nightmare. You never knew which channels were going to work, 2 or 3 of them. It was a giant board, but it was the old membrane switch that controlled everything, and just miles and miles and miles of ribbon cable. And every time you crimped them, probably 1 or 2 of the functions weren't going to work and the switches weren't going to work. And man, what a nightmare. But, you know, where would we be without Rupert Neve in this industry? And, yeah, anyways, that's it for this one. I'll see you with some clickbait video reviews probably tomorrow.